A big part of learning how to become a great jazz improviser is learning jazz standards, the actual repertoire, because jazz standards are the vehicles in which jazz musicians use to improvise over. They're a way we can communicate with others, and they're a common repertoire that we should all know and we can play together. So you might wonder, well, which standards should I learn? Well, here is a great list of 40 that I would suggest you start ticking off your list, coming right up. What's up, it's Brent here from Learn Jazz Standards, which is a blog, a podcast, and videos all geared towards helping you become a better jazz musician. Hey, make sure that you are subscribed to this channel so that you're locked into all the new content that I come out with every single week. So I am going to cover a lot of jazz standards today. I'm going to go through them as quickly as possible and list them out by categories so that you can look and see, oh, these are the blues tunes I need to learn. These are the ballads I need to learn. These are the bebop heads I need to learn, just to make things simple and easy for you. And hey, if you're like more of a visual person, you need a list actually there for you. You can go ahead and go to the card above in the description below. I'm going to link up a blog post I've done called 50 Jazz Standards You Need to Know. It's also the top of Google. So if you type in jazz standards or 50 jazz standards, it'll come up there as well. So that's a great link to go to. And there's also resources, including backing tracks, including bios, including chord charts for every single one of those tunes there. All right, so let's jump right into these 40. Let's start with the first ones, startup standards. Now, startup standards are ones that I consider to be essential to learn. You just need to know them. They're the basics. If you're a beginner, definitely start with these ones first. All right, the first one is Autumn Leaves by Joseph Kosma. The second one is So What by Miles Davis off of his famous album, Kinda Blue. The next one is Blue Bossa by Kenny Dorham. Great introduction to Bossa Nova and jazz. And then we got Take the A Train by Billy Strayhorn, of course, made famous by the Duke Ellington Orchestra. All of Me by Gerald Marks and Seymour Simon. And then Song for My Father by Horace Silver. A great way to get introduced into Latin rhythms in jazz. All right, so let's move on to the next category here. I call them advanced essentials. And essentially, these are important songs. There's more chord changes to them. They're more complex harmony. However, you need to know these for sure, especially if you go to jam sessions or gigs. They are bound to be called. All right, so the first one is All the Things You Are by Jerome Kern, really important one. And then the famous ballad Stella by Starlight by Victor Young. Alone Together by Arthur Schwartz. Have You Met Miss Jones by Richard Rodgers. I can almost hear the Louis Armstrong version going on in my head. It Could Happen to You by Jimmy Van Heusen, really important. And Days of Wine and Roses by Henry Mancini. So those are advanced essentials, a little tougher than the last ones I mentioned, the startup standards, but really important to know. All right, let's move on to ballads because everybody needs to know how to play some ballads, some slower songs. So this is really important for gigs, especially to have some of these in your repertoire. So the first one is Body and Soul by Johnny Green. A pretty complex tune, but another one of those that's always going to be called. And then Misty by Errol Garner. In a Sentimental Mood by Duke Ellington. Nice minor ballad there. Then My Funny Valentine by Richard Rodgers and Lorenz Hart. And then The Nearness of You by Hoagy Carmichael. All right, so let's move on now to bossa novas. Now, all of these bossa novas, except for one, is written by Antonio Carlos Jobim, which was really the pioneer of bossa nova over in Brazil, and that being kind of a little mix of Brazilian music and jazz. So the first one is The Girl from Ipanema. Pretty much everybody is going to call that one and knows that one, to perhaps your annoyance, maybe if some people ask too much at a bar. Wave by Jobim is another one. Corcovado by Jobim. How Insensitive by Jobim. Triste, again, by Jobim. And then the last bossa nova one I want to mention is not by Jobim. It's called Recordame by Joe Henderson. It kind of influenced this bossa nova Latin feel in it, but it's a good one to mention outside. That is definitely one that is called at gigs and jam sessions. All right, now let's go to the next category, which is bebop tunes. And these are all by Charlie Parker. Charlie Parker, he is the pioneer of bebop. Of course, Dizzy Gillespie was involved as well, but Charlie Parker wrote all the tunes I'm going to mention. If you know these bebop heads, you are going to be really set up for bebop. Scrapple from the Apple is the first one. Blues for Alice, which is kind of a bird blues, or we call it a Charlie Parker blues, his version of a 12-bar blues. Ornithology, which is a contrafact on How High the Moon. Anthropology, which is a rhythm changes tune. And then Confirmation by Charlie Parker. So those are bebop tunes. You'll be in a good place if you know some or all of those. All right, now let's move to blues tunes. Now this is an important category because the blues is a really big part of jazz. The first one is a Charlie Parker tune called Billy's Bounce. The next one is All Blues, which is blues that's in 3 by Miles Davis. Then you got Sunny Moon for 2 by Sonny Rollins. Now's the Time, again by Charlie Parker in F blues. Straight Note Chaser by Thelonious Monk. And then Sandu by Clifford Brown. Sandu is in E flat. It's a little bit of a different key than normal in jazz for the blues. All right, so now I'm going to end this whole entire video here with just giving you my current top 5 favorite tunes. These aren't ones I've listed yet, and I think that they could be interesting for you to check out as well. So the first one of my top 5 is I'll Be Seeing You by Sammy Fain. And then another one by Sammy Fain, Secret Love, which I actually like to play this as a ballad. It's usually played at a very fast tempo. However, I heard this Brad Meldau version that's played as a ballad, and I really like the version of that. So that's normally actually how I play it. And then another great ballad, Polka Dots and Moonbeams by Jimmy Van Heusen is a great one. My Shining Hour by Harold Arlen is one of those tunes that just I always end up calling for any reason, especially if I can't think of any other tunes to call. And then Freight Train is a great bird blues that was written by Tommy Flanagan for John Coltrane. And there's a great version of this song on Kenny Burrell and John Coltrane. You could check that one out. And then lastly, but not least, Let's Cool One by Thelonious Monk. Great tune. I love all of these. So hey, check out my list of 50 jazz standards that I've linked up if you want to get resources for all of these tunes that I had just mentioned. And hey, there is really a great handout that I want to offer to you that I think can be very helpful, because at the end of the day, it's about learning these tunes and how do we actually learn them to actually know them well, to not forget them, to really understand the harmony. Well, that's exactly why I created my free guide called Learn Jazz Standards the Smart Way. It's a PDF handout for free. Just go to learnjazzstandardsthesmartway.com and I'll send that right on over to you. All right, so this is what I want to hear from you in the comments. Which jazz standards in certain categories that I've mentioned would you suggest others to learn? Go ahead and just fill those comments with as many of those as possible. All right, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you for being here and hanging out with me a little bit today, and I will see you in the next video.